Hey everybody, my name's Eric. I'm a physical therapist. I enjoy treating the running community a lot, and I enjoy running a lot. And last night I was supposed to get on live and I got home real late from work, so I apologize. But I like to continue on through some contents of my book. Not yet released, but I like to give it out to you guys and share it with you guys as I'm completing it here. So the title was about Achilles tendinitis again, part 3, but is it really Achilles tendinitis? And what I've noticed is that a lot of times when people come to me with a diagnosis of Achilles tendinitis that might have been around for, maybe a couple months or so, maybe a little bit longer, most of the time, physicians just don't know when a nerve can be involved. And not to say that it's coming from the back, I'm not saying that at all, but if you look at the anatomy, there's a sural nerve, there's a nerve called the sural nerve, S-U-R-A-L, that traces right on the outside of the Achilles tendon and goes down around the outside of the heel and continues on to the outside of the foot on the pinky toe. So, and I've seen it often enough where Achilles tendinitis is a diagnosis from the physician or whatever, and it's no longer really the tendon, it's actually the sural nerve that is the major culprit or major problem. And this is what, when it comes to Achilles tendinitis, nobody's talking about. Sometimes it takes an initial kind of an onset of Achilles tendinitis to cause the area to be irritable. And then as the Achilles tendinitis kind of starts to shut down, the sural nerve tends to kind of hang around a little bit and sometimes ends up being the major contributor to the pain. And what else might start it is a pretty bad ankle sprain, kind of like when we typically kind of roll our ankle, because the nerve traces around the outside of the foot, down around the outside of the heel. So a simple sprain of the ankle, or just kind of we all just kind of roll our ankle, maybe on a run, maybe going downstairs, all the above. Sometimes this sural nerve gets involved. And it's hard to consider what to do because you think about stretching it. Stretching is not what this thing enjoys to feel better. The first 2 lives I did were about Achilles tendinitis and 2 different reasons, mostly foot postures that end up causing the pain in the Achilles tendon possibly, and why. This sural nerve component sometimes that we get sometimes ends up being a little bit more tricky. I treat it a little bit more like I would for an Achilles tendinitis that would start or that might be from a higher arched foot or a foot that doesn't absorb shock well. These people tend to have pretty solid calluses on the ball of their foot and their heel, because the rest of the foot just doesn't absorb shock very well. And so the last thing that the nerve wants is that sural nerve on the outside of your Achilles tendon is to have more of an arch. Doesn't want that. That stretches it out and over time can make it even worse. So most of the time when it's the sural nerve and not the Achilles tendon, I will experiment a little bit. This is where the art form of PT kind of comes in. And I will mention to them, we'll talk about shoes a little bit. And I end up migrating towards more of a stability or a weaker stability shoe, and sometimes a neutral shoe. Because the foot tends to feel a little bit better when it's allowed a little bit more of the opposite direction of what a sprained ankle does. The foot likes to be a little bit more in the opposite direction. Now, if your foot is fairly mobile, this is the last thing you want to do, because you still need to have that support in there. But it's something that you have to kind of walk around this a little bit differently. A lot of these people end up in the past have had maybe some calf pain. A lot have had maybe some lateral or posterior in the back of the knee pain in the past. Some of these people have had maybe even hamstring irritability, or what would be called hamstring kind of tightness. And maybe, on and off have had maybe some low back pain. But nonetheless, it's not the Achilles tendon. It's the sural nerve often enough that ends up being a major contributor to the pain, particularly when the Achilles tendinitis tends to not go away with all of the help that you try to get. Anyway, so the things that do end up helping this is the heel lift. The nerve, as it traces down the back of the ankle and down the side of the heel and down the foot, nerves just like to be on slack. They like to be on slack. They like to have space, just like anything else that has been injured, like a tendon or a ligament or a muscle. It likes to be on slack. It likes to have a little bit of support. So in this case, I think a quarter to a half an inch kind of a heel lift is helpful. Don't go on your runs with that in there. Wait till this thing subsides, because then you'll start all kinds of other issues. What I'll do, I'll show you guys. I use this tape a lot, rock tape. There's other brands called Kinesio Tape, which is the Hallmark brand, the ones that started it. The patent ran out, so everybody else got in on it. TheraBand tape, and even just KT tape, another one it's called that, KT tape. Anyway, so the thing about this one though is that you gotta try to trace the sural nerve instead of the Achilles tendon, and that's a little bit lateral on the outside. And there was a lady that I spoke with a long time ago about a similar symptom that she had. It was a little bit more around the heel, not as much at the Achilles tendon, although she kind of talked about that. If you sit down for your job, or you sit down a lot, it's not going to make this feel better. Or if you have tight shoes, or wear wedged shoes that are tight around the heel, not going to do you any better. If you have a wedged shoe that you can wear and it's not tight around the heel, perfect, go for it. Wedge shoes, shoes with a negative drop heel aren't good, meaning that the heel and the forefoot are about level. You don't want that. You want something that's a little bit higher. And on top of that, like I was saying, a quarter of an inch heel lift, sometimes a half, will tend to feel better as well and make this thing kind of shut down some. But anyway, so let me see if I can kind of maybe angle this down while I'm trying to show you how I generally tape this issue. Anyway, there we go. Okay, so yeah, I think you can see me. Anyway, so the sural nerve traces around the outside of your Achilles tendon, the outside of your heel, and kind of disappears around the foot there, your toe, your pinky toe. Anyway, you start from the bottom up. Just put maybe the first inch or so, just lay that down. Nerves like to be on slack, and this one is really close to the skin. So I just stretch it out a little bit, maybe 75% or so of what that tape can actually stretch. And then I'll kind of, instead of going right over the Achilles tendon, I'll go off to the side just a little bit. Lay that down. And then come up the outside of the Achilles tendon and outside of the calf a little bit. And that's essentially the tape job. Sometimes I'll double that up if it's really bad or been around for a while. But that's the tape job. And then on top of that, you know, sometimes wearing wedge-shaped shoes for the girls helps out in the long run. This should kind of heal pretty quick if you spend a ton of time in things that it likes, whether it's a good heel lift, wedge-shaped shoe for the girls, maybe, half an inch, start with a quarter of an inch, but, up to a half an inch for the guys. If you go running with that stuff, it's not going to go well for you. Do not do that. Don't go running until this thing completely resolves, and without the heel lift. But with the tape actually sometimes helps. If you use the tape and you go for your run, sometimes you'll feel fine. What else could I tell you? No stretches. I know it's kind of counterintuitive. I'm trying to read from my book here. I know it's counterintuitive, but do not stretch your calf, okay, for this thing. Don't roll your calf. Don't roll out your plantar fascia, all that stuff for this particular problem. I would not suggest that, because in the long run, it's just going to maybe feel better for a couple minutes or so, maybe a couple hours, but then it comes back, and sometimes it comes back pretty bad. Let's see, I think that's about it. And what I mentioned about the nerve, the sural nerve possibly being involved, often enough when the sural nerve is involved, a lot of times in the history, these people have had, knee pain on the same side, on the outside of the knee or the back of the knee. Sometimes really, I've had maybe on and off hamstring strain that may be more about the sciatic nerve than anything else. And sometimes these people have had on and off low back pain. And true to form, a number of these people that have had maybe more pain along this area that's, traces the Achilles tendon and is, on the outside a little bit more, sural nerve. A lot of these people end up, having sit-down jobs. And they'll notice it maybe a little bit more at the end of the day. Anyway, let's see if there's anything else I could tell you. That's about it. A little bit shorter today. I don't think I missed anything. If I did, I'll say it later and do another live. But anyhow, I think tomorrow I'm going to talk about reasons why. I want to talk about Seaver's disease for kids. If any of you guys have kids that deal with heel pain on the back of the heel, we'll talk about that tomorrow. A lot of the stuff in the back of the foot and the back of the heel, they get treated very similarly. But you just got to be particularly careful about the sural nerve, only because if, not careful is not the best word, but you need to go on that one kind of gingerly, because that one will tend to hang around a while if you're not careful. If you don't start doing something about it now, that thing hangs around for a long time. And it's a bummer for runners, for anybody in general, because we all walk. But yeah, so hopefully that helps. Just want to say hey to everybody on or tried to join me at the time. Ingrid, Ivan, Tiffany, and Joy. Thanks, everybody. I hope I was helpful tonight for some of you guys. And maybe in the future, if you ever have any pain point around that area, then you know how to deal with it and get ahead of it, because most of the time the physicians can't. And it takes too long to see those guys most times. So anyway, take care, and we'll see y'all tomorrow.